I am Laura, 34 years old, and until recently, I thought I had finally found my happily ever after with Robert and his 3 children. I opened my heart and my home to them, dreaming of the perfect blended family. Then came the day his kids declared they only answer to their biological parents, standing there with defiant expressions while my husband did nothing. What happened next shocked everyone, including me. If you are watching this, drop a comment letting me know where you are tuning in from. Hit that like button and subscribe to follow my journey of reclaiming my self-respect and reshaping our family dynamic. Denver had always been home to me. The Rocky Mountains served as my backdrop as I built my life as a real estate agent. I worked hard for 5 years after my previous relationship ended, focusing solely on my career and establishing myself in the competitive housing market. My dedication paid off, and I became one of the top-selling agents in my firm, specializing in luxury properties in the Cherry Creek neighborhood. Being single for 5 years was not easy, but it gave me time to heal and grow into the confident woman I knew I could be. Everything changed at a charity fundraiser for local schools. I had donated a significant commission from a recent sale and attended the gala dinner as a sponsor. That was where I first saw Robert across the crowded ballroom. He was tall with salt and pepper hair that somehow made his blue eyes stand out even more. When we were introduced by a mutual friend, his handshake lingered just long enough for my heart to skip a beat. "I have heard great things about your work in real estate," he said, his smile revealing a small dimple in his right cheek. "I have been thinking of upgrading to a larger home for my children." Throughout the evening, we kept finding our way back to each other. Robert was a corporate attorney who specialized in mergers and acquisitions. What truly captured my attention was how he spoke about his 3 children. His eyes lit up when he mentioned Sophia, his 16-year-old daughter, who was passionate about photography. He beamed with pride, describing Tyler, his 14-year-old son, who had just made the varsity baseball team as a freshman. And his voice softened noticeably when talking about 11-year-old Emma, who apparently had inherited his love for debate and could argue circles around him already. "They are my world," he said, swirling his glass of Cabernet. "The divorce was hard on them, but they are resilient. We have a pretty good co-parenting situation now." We exchanged numbers that night, and our first date was the following weekend. Over the next few months, our relationship blossomed. Robert was attentive, intelligent, and seemed genuinely interested in my life and career. It took nearly 3 months before he felt it was the right time to introduce me to his children. I still remember how nervous I was that day. I had changed outfits 7 times trying to find something that said "cool potential stepmom" without trying too hard. I settled on jeans, a casual blouse, and minimal jewelry. Robert had arranged for us to meet at a local pizza place that his kids loved. Sophia arrived first, her long, dark hair pulled back in a messy bun, her camera hanging around her neck. She was reserved but polite, asking thoughtful questions about my work and seeming genuinely interested in my answers. Tyler was more outgoing, immediately telling me about his latest baseball game and asking if I had ever played sports. Emma was initially shy, hiding slightly behind her father, but by the end of dinner, she was showing me pictures of her collection of stuffed animals and asking if I would come see her in her upcoming school debate. "I think they really liked you," Robert whispered, as we watched them head to the car after dinner. Emma never shows her stuffed animal pictures to anyone she does not trust. Over the following weeks, I spent more time with the children, both with Robert and occasionally on my own. Sophia asked me to help her with a school project about careers in real estate. Tyler invited me to one of his baseball games. Emma asked if I would help her practice for her debate. Each interaction filled me with hope that we could form a real bond. I also learned more about Vanessa Roberts' ex-wife. She was a corporate executive who traveled frequently for work. According to Robert, they had divorced 3 years earlier due to growing apart and her demanding travel schedule. He emphasized that they maintained a cordial relationship for the sake of the children. The kids spent alternating weeks with each parent, a schedule that seemed to work well for everyone. Vanessa is a good mother, Robert told me once. She just struggles with work-life balance sometimes. The kids understand, though. They know both of us love them more than anything. My relationship with Robert continued to deepen, and after a year of dating, he proposed during a weekend trip to Aspen. I said yes without hesitation. We planned a small but elegant wedding for the following spring, making sure to include the children in every aspect of the planning. Sophia agreed to be my junior bridesmaid and take some of the wedding photos. Tyler was going to be the ring bearer, and Emma was excited to be the flower girl. The wedding was perfect. It was a beautiful May day with the mountains providing a stunning backdrop for our outdoor ceremony. Sophia looked beautiful in her pale blue dress. Tyler was handsome in his suit, and Emma was adorable as she scattered rose petals down the aisle. During the reception, each child gave a small speech that brought tears to my eyes. "Laura makes my dad so happy," Sophia said, her voice steady and mature. "And she always takes time to help me with my photography." "Laura comes to all my games," Tyler added, "even when Dad has to work late." "Laura is really nice," Emma concluded simply. "And she makes the best chocolate chip cookies ever." After the wedding, Robert and I spent a week in Hawaii for our honeymoon, while the children stayed with Vanessa. It was perfect having that time just to ourselves, but I found myself missing the kids and looking forward to starting our life together as a family. My home in Denver was spacious, a beautiful 4-bedroom craftsman-style house that I had purchased 2 years earlier. It had a large backyard with a patio perfect for family barbecues, and each child would have their own bedroom. Robert sold his smaller townhouse, and we decided that my home would become our family home. When we returned from our honeymoon, the process of blending our households began. Robert moved in his belongings, and on the weeks when the children were with us, they brought their essential items. We went shopping together to let each child pick out new bedding and decorations to make their rooms feel like their own spaces. Sophia chose a sophisticated gray and yellow color scheme for her room. Tyler wanted everything in his baseball team colors, and Emma selected a rainbow of pastel colors. "This is going to be awesome," Tyler said, as he helped his dad assemble his new desk. "Your house is way bigger than Dad's old place." "It is our house now," I corrected gently. "All of ours." The first few weeks of our new family arrangement seemed to go smoothly. The children were respectful and seemed to be adjusting well. We established routines for school mornings, family dinners, and weekend activities. On the weeks when the kids were with Vanessa, Robert and I enjoyed our time as a couple, going out for date nights or just relaxing at home. When the kids were with us, we focused on family activities and building our new life together. I truly believed we were on the right track to becoming a happy, blended family. Little did I know that storm clouds were gathering on the horizon, about to disrupt the peaceful life I thought we were building together. The shift was subtle at first, so subtle that I initially brushed it off as normal adjustment issues. It began about 3 months after the wedding, right as summer was ending, and the kids were preparing to go back to school. Sophia was the first to show signs of resistance. One evening I asked her to please be home by 10 on a school night when she was going out with friends. "Mom lets me stay out until 11, she said, not even looking up from her phone. "Well, in this house school night curfew is 10, I replied, trying to keep my tone light. She looked up then, a flash of something defiant in her eyes. "Whatever. I will just tell Dad," when he gets home. That same week, I noticed Tyler had forgotten to do his assigned chores 3 days in a row. When I reminded him about taking out the trash, he simply shrugged. "I will do it later," he said, continuing to play his video game. "The garbage truck comes in the morning," I explained. "It needs to be done now." He sighed dramatically, paused his game, and stomped to the kitchen. I heard him muttering under his breath as he dragged the trash can out, but I could not quite make out the words. When he came back in, he returned straight to his game, without a word. Even little Emma, who had always been the most accepting of me, began exhibiting troubling behavior. When I asked her to clean up her art supplies from the dining table before dinner, she gave me a sweet smile and said, "Daddy said, I do not have to clean up if I am still being creative." These incidents multiplied over the following weeks. Sophia began ignoring my texts when she was out with friends. Tyler would claim he never heard me when I called him for dinner or asked him to do something. Emma became increasingly skilled at playing Robert and me against each other, telling each of us that the other had already given permission for whatever she wanted to do. One afternoon, I came home early from work and overheard Robert in the kitchen with the kids. I paused in the hallway when I heard my name. "Just do it when Laura is not around," Robert was saying. "It is not worth the argument." My heart sank. I quietly retreated and entered the house again, this time making more noise to announce my presence. The conversation in the kitchen immediately stopped. That evening, after the kids were in bed, I confronted Robert about what I had overheard. "I think we need to present a united front with the kids," I said carefully. "It undermines my position when you tell them to just wait until I am not around to do things they know I would not approve of." Robert looked surprised, then slightly guilty. "I was just trying to keep the peace. Sophia wanted to invite some friends over this weekend, and I know you have that client coming to see the house down the street." "That is exactly my point," I said. "We should have discussed it together. Maybe we could have found a compromise, like having her friends come after my showing. But now you have essentially told her that my rules do not matter." Robert ran a hand through his hair. "You are overthinking this. They are just kids adjusting to a new situation. It will get better with time." But it did not get better. If anything, the disrespect became more overt. Sophia began referring to my house as Dad's new place, despite having lived there for months. Tyler started responding with, "You are not my mom," whenever I asked him to do anything he did not want to do. Emma would burst into tears and call her mother at the slightest correction from me. I tried to bond with each child individually, hoping that one-on-one time might help rebuild our relationship. I offered to take Sophia to a photography exhibition at the local art museum, but she claimed to have too much homework. I bought tickets to a baseball game for Tyler and me, but he suddenly remembered he had promised to go to a friend's house that day. I suggested Emma and I have a girls' day with manicures and lunch, but she said she was not feeling well, only to miraculously recover when Robert suggested taking her for ice cream an hour later. Family dinners became increasingly tense affairs. The children would engage enthusiastically with Robert, but respond to my questions with one-word answers or shrugs. If I tried to enforce table manners like not using phones at dinner or asking someone to use please and thank you, I would receive eye rolls or pointed sighs. "Sophia, could you please pass the salt?" I asked one evening. She slid it across the table without looking up from her phone. "We agreed no phones at the dinner table," I reminded her. "Dad is on his phone," she replied, nodding toward Robert, who was indeed checking his email. "You are right," I conceded, looking pointedly at Robert. "No phones at the table applies to everyone." Robert reluctantly put his phone away, but not before giving Sophia a wink that he thought I did not see. After dinner, I tried again to talk to Robert about the growing disrespect. I feel like I am becoming the villain in my own home, I explained. Every rule or boundary I try to set is treated as unreasonable, and you often undermine me in front of the kids. You are being too strict, Robert countered. They are good kids. They just need time to adjust to the new arrangements. And honestly, maybe you could be a little more flexible. You are not their mother. His words stung more than he knew. I am not trying to replace their mother, Robert. I am trying to be respected as an adult in this household who has a say in how things run, especially in a home that I owned before you all moved in. That is part of the problem right there, Robert said, his tone sharpening. You keep thinking of it as your house, but it is supposed to be our house now. I do think of it as our house, I insisted. But that does not mean I should have no say in the rules here. Despite these conversations, nothing changed. Robert continued to be the good cop to my apparent bad cop. The children became increasingly bold in their disregard for my role in the family. I found myself becoming quieter at home, retreating to avoid the constant tension. The irony was not lost on me that I was beginning to feel like a guest in my own house, tiptoeing around to avoid conflict. I still tried to maintain a positive attitude, telling myself that blending families takes time, that the children were still processing the changes in their lives, that eventually they would come around. I read books on step-parenting, joined online forums for blended families, and even suggested family counseling, which Robert dismissed as unnecessary. We do not need a stranger telling us how to be a family, he said. We will work it out ourselves. But as the weeks turned into months, my optimism began to wane. The home that had once been my sanctuary was now a battleground, and I was losing the fight. I just did not know yet how much worse things would get, or that a single evening would soon force me to make one of the hardest decisions of my life. 6 months into our marriage, I was hosting a client appreciation event at our home. As a real estate agent, maintaining relationships with past clients was crucial for referrals, and this annual gathering was something I had been planning for months. This year was particularly important because several potential high-value clients would be attending, including a couple relocating from New York who were looking to purchase multiple investment properties in Denver. I had been explicit with Robert and the children about how important this event was for my career. We had discussed it at length during family dinner the previous weekend, and Robert had assured me that the kids understood they needed to be on their best behavior. It is just for a few hours, I explained, setting out the catering menu for their approval. You can either help out as greeters or hang out upstairs quietly. Either way is fine with me. We will help, Robert promised, giving each child a pointed look. Right, guys? All three nodded, though I noticed Sophia's was particularly reluctant. The day of the event arrived and everything was perfect. The house was spotless. The catering was set up beautifully in the dining room and on the patio, and I had hired a bartender to serve drinks. My business partner, Jasmine, arrived early to help with final preparations. This looks amazing, Laura, she said, adjusting one of the flower arrangements. The Goldsteins just confirmed they are coming, and you know they are building that new development in Highland. My heart raced with excitement. The Goldsteins were exactly the kind of connection I had been hoping to make. If I could become their agent of choice, it would mean millions in sales over the next few years. The first guests began arriving at 6 o'clock. Robert was charming as always, working the room and making everyone feel welcome. The children were initially helpful too. Tyler took coats. Emma passed appetizers, and Sophia, to my surprise, offered to take photos of the event. Everything was going smoothly until about halfway through the evening. I was in deep conversation with Mrs. Goldstein about their property requirements when the first notes of loud music began thumping through the ceiling from upstairs. "Excuse me for just a moment," I said to Mrs. Goldstein, trying to maintain my professional smile. "Please help yourself to more wine. The Cabernet is excellent." I hurried upstairs to find Sophia in her room with the door-open music blasting from her speakers. She was sprawled across her bed, scrolling through her phone. "Sophia," I said, raising my voice to be heard over the music. "Could you please turn that down? We have guests." She glanced up briefly. "I am just listening to music in my room." "I understand, but it is very loud and we can hear it downstairs. Remember we talked about how important tonight is." With an exaggerated sigh, she reached over and turned the volume down marginally. Better. It was still too loud, but I was aware of Mrs. Goldstein waiting downstairs. "A little more, please." Sophia rolled her eyes, but complied, turning it down one more notch. "Thank you," I said, already turning to leave. "I appreciate your help earlier with the photos." As soon as I returned downstairs, I sought out Mrs. Goldstein and apologized for the interruption. We resumed our conversation, but within 10 minutes, the music from upstairs had gradually increased in volume again. Before I could excuse myself once more, I noticed Tyler near the drink table, openly mocking one of my older clients behind his back. He was imitating the man's slight stoop and deliberate way of speaking, causing a couple of the teenagers from the neighboring family to snicker. I quickly crossed the room. "Tyler," I whispered urgently, "that is incredibly disrespectful. Please, stop immediately." "I was just joking around," he protested, though he had the grace to look slightly embarrassed at being caught. "It is not funny to make fun of others," I said firmly. "Why do not you help your father with drinks for a while?" He slouched off towards Robert, and I turned back to see several guests watching our interaction. I forced a smile and moved to rejoin Mrs. Goldstein, only to hear a crash from the patio, followed by a wail that could only belong to Emma. When I reached the patio, Emma was sitting on the ground, surrounded by broken glass fake, crying at a volume designed to attract maximum attention. One of my most important clients, Mr. Placist Peterson, was kneeling beside her, looking concerned. "What happened?" I asked, crouching down beside them. "She bumped into the table and knocked over some glasses," Mr. Peterson explained. "I do not think she is hurt, just startled." Emma continued to sob dramatically. "I want my daddy." "He is inside," I said gently. "Let me help you up so we can get this glass cleaned up." "No," she wailed louder. "I want my real mom. Call my mom." My face burned with embarrassment as I noticed every guest on the patio had stopped their conversations to watch the scene unfold. Mr. Peterson looked uncomfortable, and I could see Mrs. Peterson whispering to another guest. Robert finally appeared, having heard the commotion. "What is going on?" Emma immediately stopped crying and reached for him. "Daddy, I was just trying to help and Laura got mad at me for breaking a glass." "I never said I was mad," I started to explain, but Robert was already lifting Emma into his arms. "It is okay, princess," he soothed. "Accidents happen." He carried her inside, without even acknowledging me or the mess left behind. I was left to apologize to the Petersons and call the caterer to help clean up the broken glass. The rest of the evening was a disaster. I tried to salvage my conversations with potential clients, but I was repeatedly interrupted by issues with the children. Sophia's music continued to turn up whenever I was engaged in an important discussion. Tyler became increasingly sullen and made sarcastic comments within earshot of guests. Emma clung to Robert, refusing to leave his side and interrupting adult conversations with demands for attention. By the time the last guest left, I was a mixture of humiliation and fury. My professional reputation had taken a hit, and I had watched the Goldsteins leave early, citing an early morning the next day. As soon as the door closed behind the final guest, I turned to face my family who were gathered in the living room. Robert was sitting on the couch with Emma on his lap. Tyler was sprawled in an armchair playing a game on his phone. Sophia was leaning against the wall looking bored. "What was that?" I asked, my voice shaking with suppressed anger. "We talked about how important tonight was." "The kids were just being kids," Robert said dismissively. "They helped out at the beginning." "They deliberately sabotaged my event," I countered. "Sophia, you knew the music was too loud. Tyler, you were rude to multiple guests. And Emma, that dramatic scene on the patio was completely unnecessary." "You are always complaining about something," Sophia muttered. "This is why we do not want to be around you." "Excuse me?" I said, genuinely shocked by her open hostility. "You heard me," she said, standing up straighter and looking me directly in the eye. "You are not our mother. You are just the woman our dad married. We only answer to our biological parents." The room fell silent. I looked at Tyler, who was nodding in agreement with his sister. Even Emma, still on Robert's lap, wore a smug expression that no 11-year-old should be capable of. I turned to Robert, waiting for him to say something to defend me, to correct this blatant disrespect. He shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing. "Robert," I prompted, my voice barely above a whisper, "do you have anything to say about what your daughter just said to me?" He cleared his throat. "The kids are just upset. It has been a long night." "That is it?" I asked incredulously. "Your children just told me to my face that I have no authority in this family in my own home, and your response is that they are tired." "Do not make this a bigger deal than it is," he said, his tone carrying a warning. "Let us all get some sleep and talk about it tomorrow when everyone is calmer." "I am perfectly calm," I said, though I could feel my hands trembling. "What I want to know is whether you agree with them. Do you also believe I have no say in this family?" "Of course not," he said quickly, though his eyes did not meet mine. "But you have to understand they are still adjusting, and you can be a bit controlling sometimes." "Controlling," I repeated, unable to believe what I was hearing. "Setting basic rules about respect and behavior is controlling." "See, this is exactly what I mean," Sophia interjected. "You are always getting upset over nothing." "This is not nothing," I insisted, tears of frustration threatening to spill. "This is about basic respect, which I have apparently failed to receive from any of you tonight." "Maybe if you earned our respect instead of demanding it," Tyler muttered, still not looking up from his phone. That was the final straw. I took a deep breath and looked around at the 4 people who were supposed to be my family, but who had made me feel like an unwelcome intruder in my own home. "I think you all need to leave," I said quietly. What Robert said, finally looking alarmed. "Do not be ridiculous." "I am not being ridiculous," I said, my voice steadier now. "I need some space tonight. Please take the children to your parents' house or a hotel." "You cannot kick us out," Robert protested. "This is our home too." "A fact that seems to only matter when it is convenient for you," I replied. "Please just go. We can talk tomorrow when I have had time to think." A tense standoff followed, but eventually Robert must have seen the determination in my eyes. He sighed heavily and stood up still, carrying Emma. "Fine. Kids, get your overnight bags. We will go to Grandma and Grandpa's." As they grudgingly gathered their things, no one spoke to me. They filed out of the house one by one, Robert the last to leave. "This is completely unreasonable," he said at the door. "We will discuss this tomorrow." Then they were gone, and I was alone in my beautiful house that no longer felt like a home. The remnants of my ruined professional event surrounded me, half-empty glasses, plates of uneaten food, scattered napkins. I sank onto the couch and finally allowed myself to cry, overwhelmed by the hurt and betrayal. But as the tears subsided, something else began to take its place: determination. This could not continue. Something had to change, and if no one else was going to fix it, then I would have to take matters into my own hands. I slept little that night, my mind racing with hurt, anger, and confusion. By the time the sun rose, I had moved through several stages of grief and landed firmly in resolution. I sat at my kitchen island with a cup of coffee, a legal pad, and a clarity I had not felt in months. First, I took inventory of exactly what I had been contributing to this family. Financially, I was carrying most of the weight. My name was on the mortgage for our 5-bedroom house in one of Denver's most desirable neighborhoods. I paid all the utilities, electricity, water, internet, and the premium cable package the kids insisted they needed. I covered the grocery bills that had tripled since 3 growing children joined our household. I paid for the weekly housekeeping service that kept our home immaculate. Beyond the financial contributions, there were the material comforts I provided. My home came with a heated pool that the kids enjoyed year-round. I had converted the finished basement into a game room with the latest gaming systems for Tyler. I had transformed the sunroom into a studio space where Sophia could pursue her photography. I had given Emma the largest of the spare bedrooms and helped her decorate it exactly as she wanted. Then there was the emotional labor. I was the one who coordinated schedules, arranged carpools, remembered doctor appointments, and ensured permission slips were signed. I planned family outings, researched summer camps, and maintained the family calendar. I was the one who made sure Tyler had his baseball uniform clean for games, that Sophia had the special photo paper she needed for school projects, that Emma had her debate notes organized. And how had my contributions been acknowledged? With open disrespect, rejection, and the declaration that I had no authority in my own home. I picked up my phone and called the one person I knew would give me straight advice. Olivia had been my friend since college and was now a family law attorney, she answered on the second ring. "You will not believe the night I had," I said, when she answered, then proceeded to tell her everything that had happened. "I am so sorry, Laura," she said when I finished. "That sounds incredibly painful." "I do not know what to do," I admitted. "I love Robert, but I cannot continue like this." From a legal perspective, Olivia said carefully, "You have limited rights as a step-parent. But from a practical perspective, you have significant leverage as the homeowner and financial provider." "What are you suggesting?" "I am not suggesting anything yet," she replied. "But I do think you need to establish clear boundaries. What do you want the outcome to be here?" I thought about it. I want to be respected in my own home. I want Robert to support me as his partner. I want the children to understand that while I am not trying to replace their mother, I am an adult whose rules and requests deserve respect. "Then you need to make that crystal clear," Olivia said, "and possibly back it up with consequences that matter to them." After ending the call with Olivia, I spent the morning researching step-family dynamics and healthy boundaries. I found article after article describing situations similar to mine: step-parents being undermined biological parents, failing to support their partners, children testing boundaries, and manipulating the situation. I began journaling, pouring out my feelings, and clarifying what I was and was not willing to accept going forward. I wrote down specific instances of disrespect and undermining, both from the children and from Robert. I noted patterns and triggers. Most importantly, I identified my non-negotiables: respect for my role in the family, acknowledgement of my contributions, and a united front with Robert on family rules and expectations. Then I created a comprehensive list of all the privileges that were provided solely because of me: the house itself, the pool, the premium streaming services, the unlimited data family cell phone plan, the extracurricular activities I helped finance, the game room, the photography equipment, the weekly allowances I had suggested and funded. As I reviewed this list, a plan began to form in my mind. If the children truly believed they only answered to their biological parents, then perhaps they only needed things provided by their biological parents. If I had no authority, then I should have no responsibility either. I called my lawyer next, just to be clear on my legal rights regarding the house and shared assets. She confirmed what I already suspected: as the sole owner of the property, I had the right to determine who lived there. While I could not simply throw Robert out without proper notice, given our marriage, I could certainly change access to the home and to services I personally paid for. Next, I called a locksmith and scheduled them to come that afternoon. I also called my cell phone provider, various subscription services, and the companies handling the children's extracurricular activities. One by one, I made the necessary changes. Throughout this process, I received several texts from Robert asking when we could talk and when he and the kids could come home. I replied simply that I needed more time and would contact him when I was ready. As I waited for the locksmith to arrive, I rehearsed what I would say to Robert and the children. I practiced keeping my voice calm and firm. I prepared responses to their likely reactions, including anger, accusations, and attempts to make me feel guilty. I reminded myself that this was not about punishment, but about establishing necessary boundaries. The locksmith arrived at 2 o'clock. He was a kind older man named Frank who did not ask questions about why I needed all the locks changed, though I am sure he could guess. "Sometimes a fresh start is needed," he said simply, as he worked on the front door. Yes, I agreed. That is exactly what this is. After Frank left, I went through the house one more time, making sure everything was in order. I packed up each child's essential belongings, neatly placing them in bags by the front door. I was not throwing them out, but I wanted to make a clear statement about the changes taking place. By evening, everything was ready. I sat down at the kitchen table and composed a text to Robert. "I have had time to think. Please pick up the children and their belongings tonight at 8. We need to talk about moving forward." His reply came almost immediately. "On our way. We can all talk together as a family." I did not respond. This initial conversation needed to be between the adults. The children had already made their position clear. As 8 o'clock approached, I felt a strange sense of calm. I was nervous, yes, but also confident in my decision. Whatever happened next would determine the future of our family. But I knew I could no longer continue in a situation where I was not respected or valued. It was time to reclaim my home and my sense of self-worth, even if that meant difficult conversations and painful decisions. I heard the familiar sound of Robert's car pulling into the driveway, followed by doors opening and closing, footsteps on the front walk. Then, rather than the usual sound of a key in the lock, there was a pause, followed by the doorbell. My plan was already working. Taking a deep breath, I went to face my family and set the new boundaries that would either save our marriage or end it. The morning after the disastrous client event, I woke up with a clarity I had not experienced in months. My home was quiet, empty of the chaos that had become my normal. I sat at my kitchen island, hands wrapped around a mug of coffee, and made a list of everything I needed to do. First was a call to my friend Olivia, the family law attorney. Her advice was straightforward. You cannot legally prevent your husband from entering a marital home without formal separation documents, but you can change the locks as the property owner as long as you provide him with new keys. As for services you personally pay for, those are entirely within your control. Next, I called my personal financial advisor to get a clear picture of exactly which services and accounts were solely in my name. The list was substantial: the mortgage, utilities, premium cable, and streaming services, the family cell phone plan that included the kids' lines, the membership to the community recreation center, and various subscriptions the children enjoyed. With my legal and financial position clear, I scheduled the locksmith. Joseph arrived promptly at 1 o'clock. A grandfatherly man with kind eyes who asked few questions as he worked on the 5 exterior doors of my home. "Sometimes people need a fresh start," he commented as he handed me the new keys. "Nothing wrong with securing your space while you figure things out." "Thank you for understanding," I replied, grateful for his discretion. While Joseph worked, I methodically went through my list of services to modify. First, I called the cell phone company to remove the additional lines for the children from my premium plan. They would still have basic service through Robert's account, but the unlimited data, international texting, and premium features I had added would no longer be available. "Are you sure you want to remove 3 lines from your account?" the representative asked. "We do have family discounts that make additional lines more affordable." "I am sure," I said firmly. "The family situation has changed." Next came the streaming services. I logged into Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, HBO Max, and the premium sports package I had purchased primarily for Tyler's benefit. For each account, I changed the password and removed the multiple user profiles I had created for each family member. I contacted the Community Recreation Center to remove the family edition from my membership. I called the photography studio where Sophia took weekend classes, explaining I would no longer be covering her enrollment. I emailed the baseball camp coordinator to withdraw my financial sponsorship for Tyler's summer program. I messaged Emma's debate coach to explain that her father would need to handle the registration fees for the upcoming competition. With each call and email, I felt a mixture of sadness and empowerment. I took no joy in removing privileges the children enjoyed, but I needed them to understand that these benefits came from someone they had chosen not to respect. Throughout the day, my phone buzzed with messages from Robert. "When can we talk? The kids miss home." "Are you still upset about last night? It was not that big a deal. We should all sit down together and clear the air." I responded only once mid-afternoon. "I need more time. I will let you know when I am ready to talk." By late afternoon, I began organizing the children's essential belongings. I was not removing them from my home permanently, but I wanted to make a statement. For each child, I packed a bag with several changes of clothes, their school materials, and personal items they might need immediately. I placed these bags by the front door, neat and orderly. I also took the time to write 3 letters, one for each child. I explained that I had always wanted to be part of their family, that I had tried my best to support and care for them, and that I was hurt by their rejection. I emphasized that I was not giving up on our family, but that relationships required mutual respect. I placed these letters in their respective bags, unsure if they would read them, but needing to express my feelings. As evening approached, I prepared myself mentally for the confrontation to come. I rehearsed what I would say, focusing on being clear and calm rather than emotional. I wanted this to be a turning point, not the end of our marriage, but I knew I needed to stand firm. At 7:30, I sat down at my kitchen table and sent Robert a text. "Please pick up the children and their belongings tonight at 8. We need to talk about moving forward." His reply came quickly. "On our way, we can all talk together as a family." I did not respond. The initial conversation needed to be between Robert and me without the children present to complicate matters. At 8 o'clock precisely, I heard cars pulling into the driveway. There was the familiar sound of doors opening and closing, followed by footsteps on the front walk. Then came the unexpected moment, when Robert's key failed to open the door, followed by a pause and then the doorbell. I took a deep breath, straightened my shoulders, and went to open the door. Robert stood there looking confused, with all 3 children behind him. Sophia wore an expression of disdain. Tyler looked bored, and Emma seemed uncertain, clinging to her father's hand. "Why does my key not work?" Robert demanded immediately. "I had the locks changed today," I said calmly. "Good evening, everyone." "You changed the locks," Robert repeated incredulously. "You cannot just lock us out of our home." "I have not locked you out," I explained. "I have simply changed the access process. May I speak with you privately, Robert?" "Anything you have to say, you can say in front of the kids," he insisted. "We are a family." "That is exactly what we need to discuss," I replied, my voice steady. "But first, you should know that I have canceled the additional lines on the cell phone plan, changed the passwords to all streaming services, and withdrawn financial support for extracurricular activities." The reactions were immediate. Sophia's mouth dropped open in shock. Tyler finally looked up from his phone, which I noticed he was frantically tapping with no results, likely trying to access the internet. Emma looked confused, turning to her father for explanation. "You did what Robert sputtered. You cannot just cut the kids off like that." "I have not cut them off," I corrected. "I have simply removed my financial support for extras." According to Sophia, last night the children only answer to their biological parents. If that is the case, then logically, they should only require things provided by their biological parents. "This is crazy," Sophia interjected. "You are being totally psycho." "Sophia, I addressed her directly last night. You made it very clear that I have no authority in this family. I have simply adjusted my contributions to align with that reality." "I just meant you are not our real mom," she backpedaled, looking suddenly less confident. "I never tried to be your real mom," I said. "I tried to be a supportive adult in your life who cares about you. But that role comes with a basic expectation of respect, which has been consistently missing." "So what now?" Robert demanded. "You are just throwing us out." "I have packed bags with essential items for each child," I explained, gesturing to the bags by the door. "You are welcome to come in and collect anything else they need. As for long-term arrangements, that depends on our conversation, which I would still prefer to have privately." Robert hesitated, clearly torn between anger and the realization that I was serious. Finally, he turned to the children. "Wait in the car," he instructed. "I need to talk to Laura." But Dad Tyler started to protest. "Now," Robert said firmly in a tone I had rarely heard him use with his children. Surprisingly, all 3 turned and headed back to the car without further argument. Once they were out of earshot, Robert turned back to me. "What the hell are you doing, Laura?" he demanded, his voice low and intense. "You cannot just unilaterally decide to lock out your family and cut off services." "I did not make this decision unilaterally," I countered. "It was made last night when you sat silently while your children declared, 'I have no place of authority in this family.' If that is true, then I also have no responsibility to provide for them beyond basic necessities." "You are overreacting to a comment made in the heat of the moment," he argued. Sophia was upset, we all were. It was a long night. "This is not about one comment," I said firmly. "This is about 6 months of escalating disrespect, undermining, and your complete failure to support me as your partner. Last night was simply the breaking point." Robert ran a hand through his hair. A gesture I knew indicated his frustration. So what do you want? An apology. Fine. I am sorry. The kids are sorry. An apology would be a start, I acknowledged. But this requires more than words. This requires actual change in how this family functions. I need to know that you see me as an equal partner in our marriage and in parenting your children. I need the children to understand that while I am not replacing their mother, I am an adult whose role deserves respect. And holding their belongings and privileges hostage is your way of getting respect, he asked incredulously. I am not holding anything hostage, I clarified. I am establishing boundaries. Everything I have done today can be reversed, but not without clear agreements about how we move forward. Robert was quiet for a moment, studying my face. I think he finally realized I was not bluffing or having an emotional outburst. This was a carefully considered position I was prepared to maintain. What kind of agreements, he finally asked, his tone less confrontational. First, family counseling is non-negotiable, I stated. We need professional help to navigate this blended family situation. Second, you and I need to present a united front on household rules and expectations. Third, basic respect is required from everyone, including the acknowledgement that while I am not their biological mother, I am an adult with authority in this household. And if we agree to these terms, Robert asked cautiously, then we work together to rebuild this family in a healthier way, I said. The locks get changed again with keys for everyone. The services get restored. We move forward together. And if we do not agree, I took a deep breath. This was the hardest part. Then I think we need to reconsider our living arrangements and possibly our marriage. I cannot and will not continue to live in a home where I am treated as an outsider. The weight of my words hung in the air between us. For the first time I saw real concern in Robert's eyes, perhaps the realization that he might actually lose me. I need to get the kids settled somewhere for the night, he finally said. Can we talk more tomorrow? Yes, I agreed. But Robert, I need you to understand that I am serious about this. Things cannot go back to how they were. He nodded slowly. I get it. I will call you tomorrow. As he gathered the bags I had packed and returned to the car, I watched from the doorway. Through the car windows I could see the children's faces, a mixture of anger, confusion, and perhaps just maybe the beginning of understanding that actions have consequences. As they drove away, I closed the door of my quiet house, feeling both drained and resolved. The hardest part was yet to come, but I had taken the first step toward either saving my family or freeing myself to find the respect I deserved. The following evening, my doorbell rang at exactly 6 o'clock. I had spent the day alternating between anxiety and determination, rehearsing what I wanted to say and steeling myself against potential manipulation. When I opened the door, Robert stood there alone, his expression a mixture of weariness and resignation. The kids are with my parents, he said before I could ask. I thought we should talk first, just the two of us. I nodded and stepped aside to let him in. We sat in the living room, an uncomfortable distance between us on the couch that had once been our favorite place to curl up together. I spent a lot of time thinking last night, Robert began, and talking with my parents. My mother had some particularly choice words for me. This surprised me. About what? About how I have been letting the kids treat you. She said she raised me better than to allow anyone to disrespect my wife in her own home. He sighed heavily. She is right. I have been failing you as a husband, and I have been failing my kids as a father by not teaching them proper respect. His words caught me off guard. I had prepared for arguments and defensiveness, not immediate acknowledgement. Why, I asked, simply, "Why have you let it get to this point?" Robert was quiet for a moment, seemingly gathering his thoughts. "I think I have been carrying a lot of guilt about the divorce. I felt like I had already disrupted their lives once, and I did not want to be the bad guy again by enforcing rules they did not like. I thought if I just let them adjust at their own pace, everything would work out. But it has been getting worse, not better," I pointed out. "I know," he admitted. "And truthfully, it has been easier to let you be the disciplinarian while I got to be the fun parent. That was selfish and unfair." His honesty was both refreshing and painful. "Where do we go from here?" I asked. "I talked to the kids last night about what happened," he said. "Really talked to them probably for the first time in months. I explained that their behavior has been unacceptable, and that you deserve respect as my wife and as an adult in our household." "How did they respond?" "About how you would expect," he said, with a rueful smile. Sophia was defensive. Tyler tried to act like he did not care, and Emma cried. But I think they got the message that this is serious, especially when they realized their phones were not working properly and they could not access their usual shows. "I do not want to punish them," I clarified. "I just need them to understand that respect is not optional in a family." "I know," Robert nodded. "And that is what I told them. This is not about punishment. It is about consequences for choices they have made. I also told them about your conditions for moving forward, including family counseling. And I have already scheduled our first appointment for Thursday," he said, pulling out his phone to show me the confirmation email. "All 5 of us." I felt a small glimmer of hope. "What about the other conditions? A united front on rules and basic respect." "I promise to support you completely from now on," Robert said, reaching for my hand. "No more undermining, no more just do it when Laura is not around. We will present a united front, and I will make it clear to the kids that disrespect toward you is disrespect toward me as well." His words were exactly what I had been longing to hear for months, but I remained cautious. "Words are important, Robert, but this will require consistent action." "I know," he acknowledged, "and I am prepared to prove it to you. But first, I think the kids need to have their say, too." Before I could respond, he pulled out his phone again and sent a quick text. A few minutes later, the doorbell rang. When I opened it, Robert's parents were standing there with Sophia, Tyler, and Emma. "The children have something they would like to say to you," Robert's mother said, firmly giving each of them a pointed look. Sophia stepped forward first, her usual confidence subdued. "I am sorry for what I said about only answering to our biological parents," she said, her voice quiet but steady. "It was disrespectful and hurtful. You have done a lot for us, and we have not been very grateful." Tyler went next, his eyes fixed on the floor. "Sorry for being rude during your work party, and for ignoring you when you asked me to do stuff, and for the other things, too." Emma, looking smaller than usual, said simply, "I am sorry I pretended to be hurt at your party, and for saying I wanted my real mom instead of you. That was mean." Their apologies seemed genuine, if somewhat prompted by their grandparents' presence. I acknowledged each one with a nod, but waited to see if there was more. Robert stepped forward. "We have discussed as a family what needs to change going forward. The kids understand that while you are not replacing their mother, you are an important adult in their lives and my partner in this household. They know that respect is non-negotiable and that there will be consequences if the disrespect continues. We also talked about all the things you do for us that we have been taking for granted," Sophia added, seeming to go off script. "The house, the pool, the photography classes, all of it. We did not really think about how much you provide until it was gone." "That is right," Robert confirmed. "And part of moving forward is acknowledging those contributions and showing appropriate gratitude. I looked at each of their faces, seeing varying degrees of sincerity and discomfort. I appreciate the apologies, I said carefully. And I want you all to know that I never expected to replace your mother. I just wanted to be part of this family to contribute positively to your lives, and to be treated with basic respect in return. We understand that now, Robert said. Do not we, kids? All three nodded, though Emma seemed the most sincere, Tyler, the most reluctant. There is one more thing, Robert added. I have explained to the children that their behavior has put our marriage at risk. They need to understand that their actions have real consequences, not just for privileges, but for our family structure. This was surprisingly direct, and I saw genuine alarm flash across all three young faces. Are you guys getting divorced? Emma asked, her voice small and worried. No, honey, I assured her quickly. But we do need to make some significant changes to how we function as a family. That includes family counseling, which your dad has already arranged. Therapy, Sophia groaned. Yes, therapy, Robert said firmly. This is not optional. We need professional help to navigate this situation better than we have been. What about our stuff? Tyler asked pragmatically. And the internet and everything. That depends on what happens next, I explained. I am willing to restore those privileges gradually as we rebuild trust. But they are privileges, not rights, and they are contingent on respectful behavior. Robert's mother stepped forward then. The children will be staying with us for the next few days while you two work things out, she said. We think it is important for you to have some space to talk without the immediate pressure of full family living. I was grateful for her understanding and support. Thank you, Martha. That is very helpful. As the evening continued, we discussed more specific expectations and guidelines for moving forward. We agreed on a gradual return to the household, beginning with family counseling and then perhaps weekend visits before resuming full-time living arrangements. We established clear rules about respect, communication, and consequences. Throughout the conversation, Robert remained supportive and engaged, reinforcing my position rather than undermining it. When it was time for them to leave, each child hugged me, somewhat awkwardly but willingly. Robert lingered behind after his parents took the children to the car. I am sorry, Laura, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I have been a terrible husband and a mediocre father. I let my guilt and insecurity get in the way of doing what was right. I promise to do better. I need you to, I said honestly. I cannot do this alone, Robert. Blending families is hard enough with both parents on the same page. It is impossible when we are working against each other. I know, he nodded. I will not let you down again. As I watched him walk to the car, I felt cautiously optimistic. The confrontation had gone better than I had dared hope, but I knew that real change would take time, consistency, and commitment from everyone involved. That night alone, in my house once more, I reflected on the events of the past 2 days. I had taken a stand, established boundaries, and demanded respect. It had been terrifying and painful, but also empowering. Whatever happened next, I knew I would no longer accept being an outsider in my own family. The 2 weeks that followed were a period of profound transition for our family. Robert and I agreed that the children would stay with his parents during this time, giving us space to work on our marriage while beginning the family therapy process. Our first counseling session was uncomfortable, to say the least. We sat in Dr. Harrison's office, 5 people arranged in a semicircle, no one quite sure where to look. Dr. Harrison, a kind woman in her 50s with a direct but compassionate approach, started by establishing ground rules. In this room, everyone gets to speak their truth without interruption, she explained. We listen respectfully, even when we disagree, and we focus on feelings rather than accusations. Over the course of that first session, we barely scratched the surface of our issues. Sophia reluctantly admitted that she had resented me from the beginning, not because of anything I had done, but because my presence made the divorce feel permanent. Tyler confessed that he had been following his sister's lead, trying to gain her approval. Emma, to everyone's surprise, said she actually liked me, but felt caught between her siblings and her desire to be accepted by them. Robert acknowledged his failure to support me and his tendency to compensate for his guilt by being overly permissive. And I shared my feelings of isolation and rejection despite my best efforts to be a positive addition to the family. "This is an excellent start," Dr. Harrison said, as our time ended. "Awareness is the first step toward change. For next time, I want each of you to think about one specific action you can take to improve family dynamics." The individual conversations that occurred in the days between therapy sessions were equally important. Robert and I spent hours talking about our expectations, fears, and hopes for our marriage and family. I was completely honest about how close I had come to ending our relationship. "I need to know that I am your partner in every sense," I told him during one of our long walks around the neighborhood. "That includes parenting your children." "Our children," he corrected gently. "I want them to be our children even if you did not give birth to them." This simple shift in language meant more to me than he could know. I also had individual conversations with each child coordinated with their grandmother's help. Sophia and I met for coffee at a neutral location, a small cafe downtown. "I never hated you," she admitted, stirring her latte absently. "I just did not want another mother figure telling me what to do." "I never wanted to be another mother," I clarified. "Your mom is your mom, and that will never change. I just wanted to be a supportive adult in your life, someone you could count on." "I know that now," she said quietly, "and I am sorry for how I acted, especially at your work party. That was really wrong." My conversation with Tyler happened at a baseball field, watching a local game together on the bleachers. "Dad said you paid for my summer baseball camp," he said suddenly, breaking a long silence. "I did not know that." "There are probably a lot of things you did not know." "I did," I replied, without accusation. "I never wanted credit. I just wanted to support the things you love." He nodded thoughtfully. "That is pretty cool of you." Emma was the most receptive to our one-on-one time. We went for ice cream and she chattered away about school and friends before suddenly turning serious. "Are you and Daddy okay now?" she asked, her ice cream momentarily forgotten. "Grandma said you might not want to be with us anymore because we were so mean." "Your dad and I are working things out," I assured her. "And I always want to be with you. I just need to know that I am respected in our family." "I can respect you," she said earnestly. "I promise." The development of our family contract was a collaborative process that took place over several therapy sessions. We outlined clear expectations for communication, respect, and responsibilities. We established consequences for breaking the rules, as well as rewards for positive behavior. Most importantly, we created a mechanism for regular family meetings where concerns could be raised before they escalated into major issues. 3 weeks after the night I changed the locks, we decided it was time for the family to return home. We started with a weekend visit, a trial run of our new family dynamic. The children arrived on Friday afternoon with backpacks and cautious expressions. "Welcome home," I said, standing beside Robert in the doorway. "I am glad you are here." That first weekend was not perfect by any means. Old habits occasionally resurfaced, like Sophia's eye-rolling or Tyler's selective hearing, but there was a fundamental shift in how these moments were handled. When Sophia sighed dramatically at being asked to help with dinner, Robert immediately stepped in. Sophia, that is disrespectful, he said firmly. Either help without the attitude, or you can write in your journal about why that response was inappropriate. Her surprise at her father's intervention was evident, but she quickly adjusted her behavior. Similarly, when Tyler ignored my request to take out the trash, I did not have to ask twice. Robert noticed and addressed it immediately. Tyler, Laura asked you to do something. That requires a response and action, not ignoring her. The weekend ended on a positive note, with a family movie night where everyone actually participated and enjoyed themselves. As Sunday evening approached, I expected the children to return to their grandparents' house as planned, but Robert gathered everyone in the living room. I think it is time for us to be back home permanently, he said, looking at me for confirmation. If Laura agrees. I considered the weekend the progress we had made, and the commitment I had seen from everyone. I agree. It is time for our family to be together again. The transition back to full-time living was gradual in its own way. I restored privileges one by one as trust rebuilt. First came the return of streaming services, then the cell phone upgrades, and finally the extracurricular activities. Each restoration was tied to consistent, respectful behavior and adherence to our family agreement. The most significant change was in Robert's behavior. He became the partner I had always needed, backing me up consistently and modeling the respect he expected from his children. When disagreements arose between us about parenting decisions, we discussed them privately rather than undermining each other in front of the kids. Family therapy continued weekly, then bi-weekly, and eventually monthly as our dynamics improved. Dr. Harrison helped us navigate the inevitable bumps along the way, providing tools for better communication and conflict resolution. 6 months after the night, I changed the locks our family gathered for dinner to celebrate Robert's birthday. As I looked around the table, I saw Sophia engaged in actual conversation with me about her latest photography project. Tyler was describing his baseball team's chances in the upcoming tournament with genuine enthusiasm. Emma was helping serve the food she had helped me prepare. And Robert sat at the head of the table, catching my eye with a smile that conveyed his love and appreciation. We were not perfect. We still had disagreements and moments of frustration. Blending families remained complex and challenging. But we had found a way forward, based on mutual respect and clear boundaries. The painful steps I had taken had been necessary to forge this new, healthier family dynamic. Standing up for myself had not been easy. It had required courage to risk my marriage and my relationship with the children. But in doing so, I had taught them an invaluable lesson about self-respect and boundaries, one that I hoped would serve them well in their own relationships. More importantly, I had reclaimed my place in my own home and my own life. As I reflect on our journey, I realize that the most important thing I learned was that love without respect is incomplete. True family bonds must be built on both. By demanding respect, I had actually created the opportunity for deeper, more authentic love to grow between all of us. If you are in a similar situation, whether as a step-parent or in any relationship where you feel undervalued, I encourage you to examine your boundaries. Are you accepting treatment that diminishes your worth? Are you allowing others to determine your value in relationships? Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is say no more and stand firm in our own self-respect. I would love to hear your experiences with blended families or establishing boundaries in relationships. Have you ever had to take a difficult stand to gain respect? How did it turn out? Please share in the comments below, and do not forget to like and subscribe if this story resonated with you. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember that you deserve respect in every relationship in your life.